All right, there we go. Welcome everyone. It's springtime. I think we're all very fully aware of that because I don't know about y'all, but my car is yellow now all the time, and my head hurts. So
I
I
think
think
my
those
cat
are,
comes in from outside yellow.
yeah, it's definitely spring in Florida, which means we are in the middle of, some freaky deaky weather where it's 45 in the morning and 87 in the afternoon. Good times. But welcome to Cloudy County. This is our land grant themed community where we talk about modern work, typically in the Microsoft 365 space. And today's topic is an oldie but a goodie, and I think it's a good one for us to revisit, talking about file management in Teams, like your stuff. That's what most people care about is their stuff. And so we're going to show you some tips and tricks on how to move your stuff. Maybe hopefully maybe make things a little easier if you decide later, like, hey, this is not where I want my stuff. I actually want my stuff over there. So we're going to show you how to do some of those types of things. And before I actually skip ahead of the introductions and actually start doing the session, my name is Dwayne, and I'm a
And I'm
cloud
Joe.
solution architect. That's Joe. He's a sysadmin slash Microsoft MVP important guy. So huge thank you to Joe because my week has been pretty much insane, and I haven't had a lot of opportunity to work with Joe on this. So he deserves all the credit for the heavy lifting on this month's session. But hopefully, Joe's got some demos lined up for us after we cover some news.
Yeah, we do have some what's new that we'll get started with too. So let's get started there. Be able to see my virtual machine. First thing I want to cover is some advancements in Microsoft Loop that have come out. And I don't know if I'd be curious to see if anybody chimes in if you're taking advantage of Loop. Um, Microsoft Loop is coming to education. If you're using Loop, you might still be seeing a banner talking about some licensing around Loop. But if you've got proper education licensing, I think supposedly end of this month, it was supposed to be getting stripped away from us, at least the use of workspaces, the advanced features of using a workspace. Still could use Loop components throughout a number of Microsoft services, um, Outlook, Whiteboard, Word, some things like that. So that's something you might have been using, but Workspaces is something that might have not used because of licensing, but that's changing. Be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, ignore that message.
Don't know when that's going to go away. That message, that
Yeah,
banner will go away, but hopefully before
yeah,
the end of the month.
yeah.
So that would be good. But one of the changes that has been added is the ability to bring in Planner into Loop. A couple ways you can get a plan into a Loop page is to go to the planner that you're at, and you can copy the URL for that, and you can come into your plan. And what I have here is a kind of a concept. I'm running a project inside of Loop. I've got some team members and things I need to do with it. And I can bring in that plan for that greater detail around that. I've got a brand new page here in my workspace, and I can come in and I could just paste that URL, and it brings that planner right into Loop. And I can move things around. It works as if I was in the website, but now I've got that closer to me, that plan closer to me where I'm working with all the other things around that project. I'm not having to jump around into a couple web pages perhaps or documents looking for that. I've got it all in one place. You can also find that now as if in Loop. I'm kind of down here in the bottom here. You can type a forward slash, and those are all the Loop components you can start working with. Scroll on down, and you should see now Planner. That should give you a list of plans that you currently have access to, and you can pick from those. Not sure if any of these have any type of components in it, a little bit in there, but you can pick from that and pick and choose right in. So
This is like Inception, Joe, because But I'm going to back up before I start cracking jokes about it. I think the idea here is, and during our loop session, we showed how you could create a task list in loop. And the task list that you create in loop technically does create a planner plan behind the scenes. And the reason why we're doing that is so that you can assign a task to someone and they actually get a notification that, hey, you have a task that's due or coming up due. But let's say you just started using loop and you just got into it because two geeks showed it to you on some weird Teams meeting a couple of months ago, and you're like, I like loop, this is cool, but I already have a planner plan and this is where my team already works and I don't want to have to redo all of that. That's where I think this starts to become really powerful, is you've already have that planner plan established. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just literally copy and paste the address into loop and you're done. But if you were starting fresh and you had no planner plan, you could just punch in a / and create a task list. And that's kind of the same thing. It's just a little lighter weight is all.
Yeah, yeah. If you've got probably some of those extras that you get with Planner where you can connect a document or something like that, that might be a reason to, to keep using Planner currently, and pull it into a loop page. The other item that they are just starting to roll out and add is some automation around a task list. You could do what I'm going to show you with Power Automate or the workflow engine in M365. You could get some of these rules, this rule engine that I'm going to show you, in a Microsoft list. So now they've brought it into Loop and into a task list. So you're going to have some of those same options. Should start seeing this rules engine, this rules option show up. And it's really just a little wizard that walks you through some options here. I could decide that, let's say, if something is assigned um, to an individual of some sort, let's pick, I've got a pick list here of some recent. I could type in someone else's name, maybe if I want. I could then do some automations around that and send an email with respect to this, post a message into a channel or group chats. So that is in preview. So I'll be curious to see if you're starting to see that show up now, and maybe take advantage of that. Again, it may be one way where instead of going out to plan into Planner, jumping out to web page, you were doing the same thing for a Microsoft list in some manner where that automation was helpful. Maybe you can start bringing that into Loop if you started to use Loop.
And I think you can do this with tables also, not just
Just
specifically tasks.
yeah, let's see.
So if you did it with a table, you could
Yep, you
use
got
that
rules there too.
table to do tracking. Maybe it's not just task tracking. Maybe it's, whenever we change the status of like a ticket or some item that our group is following, you could get pretty nerdy with changing, when this value equals complete, send a chat message to a group chat to let everyone know, hey, this was completed. That kind of stuff. Yeah.
So yeah, that's those are some advances there. Let's see how those work out for you. Next thing I'm going to show is just a little brief introduction into kind of not really introduction into webinars and town halls, but a little change into these, how to get into the advanced settings for those has changed for us, thankfully. Webinars and town halls. I'm just on my calendar here, and I've got some templates set up that come out of the box for a meeting. If I pick, let's just pick town hall. One little thing that has changed now for us is this meeting options is a popover right now instead of jumping out to a web page previously. So it's a nice little feature that makes it easier to understand all the settings quickly, to see them and how to access them. This used to kick you out to a web page and you get kind of lost where you're at. Now it's all kind of one nice one UI integrated, and again helps you understand maybe compare what you're getting with a webinar, what you're getting with a town hall, and how to make those changes to kind of have an effective online meeting.
Yeah, I
The
threw it in the
next,
chat, but I can't remember if we've done a deep dive. This is bad of me. I shouldn't admit this on the recording, but I can't remember if we've done a deep dive on webinars and town halls. So um, if the community would like to know more about those are high capacity meetings. 1,000 seats for a webinar and 10,000 seats for a town hall, and it's likely included in your licensing.
yeah,
So
yep.
if that's something you want to see, we'd be happy to cover it.
I occasionally see emails come across to me that says things like first 300 people can join, or sign up for this, the first 300. And I know that the other product that is Zoom, and we don't have that limitation with the team licensing that we have here. So it's definitely take advantage of that different set of seat licenses that you get. Next thing I'm going to show you is a new feature, a new function that's in Excel that I think is helpful for an operation that if you work in Excel long enough, eventually it's something that you want to do. And that is kind of taking a column of data you got from somewhere and splitting it up. One of our common tricks is to kind of take this column, and I can go over into the data menu, and I've got this split text to columns. Now, typically, if I let's say I wanted this data to look like it is now, as it is, but I wanted to split it out also, I would have to copy that, bring it over into a new field, and now let's say I want to split this field. I'm going to split this text to columns. This isn't a standard separator. There's usually not a comma or a tab in here, and spaces aren't going to work. I can see that there's spaces in some of these fields. And the problem with a custom value is I've got that pipe symbol, but I can only type one character in here. So I could type the pipe character, and I'm going to get this split out. But I'm going to get spaces in front of every one of these columns here. So I've got to do some other operation to really clean that up and trim it. Instead, I'm going to show you a different option. There's a new function called text split. And I'm just going to walk through how this works. So it's what do I want to split? What's my text I want to split? I'm going to split this column. What do I want to split it on? Well, in this case, I can use a space, a pipe, and a space. And that's going to split that out for me without those spaces, without those trimmed. And I come in here. This is live data now also. So these are, the formula is in one field, but it takes place across these other three columns, which is really nice. And it's live data. I'm going to show you one more thing. Now, typically, I could use this across all these rows, and sometimes you don't want this to be a formula after a while. Sometimes you want that data to kind of be static, and typically you could copy this data, and you can do a paste special where you paste only the values, and the formula goes away. That would get you back to static values in those cases. So I'll show you one more option that we can do here. Undo this. If I was to just start typing this first column, I've got another option, but this is going to give me static. But I've got this other option. I just needed this first column created, and I go back to my data menu. I've got this thing called Flash Fill. I click that, and it's like a little bit of AI that's been sitting there for a while. It figures out what I wanted from that first that A1 column, the column just to the left. And this one, it keeps going. It's kind of figuring out what I want. Um, just like that. And that one, I got rid of the brackets on top of it. Hopefully those are some things that some operations I think we see ourselves doing a lot of with documents in Excel and data in Excel. Just one little extra feature there, that text split, I think can come in. And I've got one more thing that I want to cover. And this is starting to roll out. We've talked about Copilot coming out now. Hopefully, if you sign into copilot.microsoft.com with your school account, you're going to start seeing this notebook option. And it's a little bit different setup. Copilot, you're having a threaded discussion. And if you ask a question, you kind of keep changing your prompts. It knows the previous information that you were talking about in that thread. And for me, sometimes I kind of get lost. I get 5 or 6 questions deep, and sometimes I just feel like I want to start over with getting the answer that I want. And that's where sometimes for me, I think Notebook might come in handy. I'll show you kind of one way to how to take advantage of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in one thing that this can do, which you'll see, is I can bring in a lot of information into this prompt that's built in. You can see, copy some text here. I just brought in about 3 pages of a PDF.
I'm going to say it's about 6,778 characters.
Yeah, really, really good there. So you can see down here, I got 18,000 tokens, characters I can bring into this. Lot more than 4,000 that you could maybe get. So I've got more data I can work with, more text I can work with immediately. And what I can do is let's pick a prompt in here, just something simple. I just want to summarize this text. Here we go. This text was about using smartphones and photography. I'm getting some information there. What's nice about this is if maybe this isn't the prompt that I wanted. This is some good information. Kind of maybe I just want that a little differently. I'm going to summarize the following text, but give key bullet points. Well, let's try it again. I can just come in here and slightly tweak my prompt until I'm getting the output exactly that I want. So I don't have to keep this long threaded discussion, and I've got the output that I want in one place. Eventually, I could come down and in here and copy that. And once I have that, really easy to see exactly what I'm looking for.
I think this is an important part of generative AI for everyone to understand and accept is what we would call like prompt iteration. Sometimes you don't get the answer that you want on the first go. And it requires that you go back to your prompt and you tweak it. You change the outcome, you change the parameters around, what you want Copilot to do, so that you can get closer to the final product. And I always tell folks like Copilot's probably going to get you 80 to 90% of the way there. And getting 80 to 90% of the work done for you after a few attempts at prompting is still a massive time savings. And if you are converting this, I don't even know how many pages that is, Joe, 6-something thousand characters. Well,
that was like full, that was three page PDF.
Yeah. So 3 full pages of content. he can now work with and manipulate and rewrite and comprehend and turn into different types of outputs depending on the use case. So yeah, he made an Excel spreadsheet. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy. But prompt iteration is a part of prompting, and this notebook feature makes that really fast because the key here is you never lose what's on the left. You never, I don't want to say lose. That's not a good word, but when you're using chat, when you're using, if you was on just the Copilot tab, you would input what you want and it would give you a response, and then you'd have a fresh new chat box to type your next question in. So if you wanted to refine what you said earlier, you'd have to go back and then, copy and paste it back down. So this is nice, especially for massive amounts of text like this, is to just continuously tweak it a little bit, change the formatting, change the persona you assigned Copilot, those types of things without losing your original prompt.
That's it for what's new. I think we're ready to kind of dive into our main portion of some file migration work.
Awesome. Well, sorry, Joe, I'm not really sure how you start this one off
Yeah,
because
well, the first thing I want to just like is I think refresher was like just why migrate? Why I've got maybe I'm using a little bit of OneDrive, but maybe I'm not fully in there yet. What are some of the reasons why we want to do this and get our files into OneDrive or SharePoint or Teams? And that's one of the first things that from our early trainings, Dwayne was talking about just access from anywhere. It's
Mhm.
really just
Yeah.
um, your files are in the cloud. Your files are accessible in a browser. You don't need a VPN back to your campus network share somehow to get to access to that. Uh, you've got apps. You've got Microsoft 365 app on your phone. You got the Google Play app. Go to Google Play and pull up the Microsoft 365 app there and access them. So that's one of our favorites of why we want to get our stuff up into OneDrive, SharePoint.
Yeah, making your data accessible to you without you having to go through a whole bunch of hurdles is, I mean, obviously a huge win. uh, Being tethered to a network drive or a file server or something like that. In some cases, that's appropriate. In other cases, it might not be the best option. It depends on the type of data that you have. So if you're going to ask me like, well, Dwayne, I've got 3.5 terabytes of, blueberry genome sequencing data and a bunch of imagery that was generated by some, crazy microscope. Should I put that in Teams? Probably not. It's probably think more collaborative, less big data slash research. So if you've got documents you're working on with your colleagues, and pictures are fine, an image library, photo library, that kind of thing. Those are really good use cases for something like this. If it's data that you want to be able to get to quickly, like Joe said, pull your phone out of your pocket and you're signed in with your work account and you can get to your data. Sharing it, how easy is it to give someone else access to the stuff that's on the network share? uh Being an IT person, I know how that works. You put in a ticket and you wait on
Exactly.
us. And we go do some wizardry on the file server or add somebody to a new group. But you see what Joe's got here, especially in OneDrive. Remember the scope. Go all the way back to the beginning. Remember the scope of OneDrive versus Teams. OneDrive is yours. By default, you are the only one who has access to it. You own everything that's in your OneDrive. And then you get to decide if you're going to share it with someone else to work on. Teams, however, is different because everyone who's a member of the team owns the content that's in the team. And this is also important for things like committees and departments and those types of things. You don't want all of that data being owned by Joe. Joe, hits the Powerball and goes and buys an island somewhere and leaves us. Okay, we have a problem. We got to figure out how to get his stuff out of his
Never, never,
OneDrive.
never.
So if we have it in a team, however, it's now owned by the group. It's owned by all the people. And so ask yourself that question before you move the data to the cloud, before we even show you what to do. Ask yourself, who does this belong to? And that's like the first step in the flow chart. That helps you decide the destination for where that data is going to go. And yeah, to answer the question in the chat, it's all actually SharePoint. We don't normally lead with that because some people hear SharePoint and run for the hills because it used to be kind of intimidating, I guess, complicated to manage permissions and stuff like that in SharePoint. And Teams, my SharePoint colleagues are gonna frown at me, but I'm gonna say like Teams made SharePoint easy. It did. When we were able to tell people like, hey, if you want to give them access to the stuff that's in the team, you just add them as a member of the team. What that was really doing is giving them permissions in SharePoint to the content that was hosted in SharePoint. It made it easy. So yes, behind the scenes, it's all technically still SharePoint, but your OneDrive is a SharePoint just for you, and your team is a SharePoint for the group of you.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing I think someone mentioned in here already in the chat is you're in control. I would say you're in control of your screw ups. You have a cloud recycle bin. If you delete something, it's going to be up there for in your OneDrive or your Teams or your SharePoint. You've got 3 months, basically 93 days to go back and restore that information. I'm in my OneDrive and I've got a handy little recycle bin right on the left hand side. It's nice to see. Well, in my OneDrive, I'm the one who deleted those, but sometimes it's helpful to understand some business processes or other reasons why maybe files are getting deleted that they don't need to be deleted for some other reason. But you can see kind of who deleted them, and that's something that's can be a bit difficult in a network share. That hard to get access to that to see why. Again, maybe there's some business process. Maybe these need to be deleted, 2 months from now instead of a month, and things are getting deleted early. This is a way for you to go in and look at that in a team or um, in a SharePoint site. I'm in the SharePoint site of a team, and I've got a recycle bin along the left hand side there also. And if you're a team member, anybody can. Again, everybody's sort of equal in there. So team members can delete, and team members can restore. And it's pretty quick and easy to come in and restore a document. I click on a file and hit restore. It's going to go back to the same original location where it was, and you can see where that is listed right there. Already mentioned sharing, and that's one nice thing that we can do.
Can you refresh that recycle bin? Oh, that must be a different team.
Oh, no test. Deleting some stuff on me.
I was.
If let's see here, if I go, let's go the other one. Let's go into a team. Oh, got a file. What do I have in here? I've got a Word document in here. Again, we did show a bit about being able to share a document and work in it. It was collaboration. Just right now, we can see that there's another individual here, James Kirk, who is in this document. And if we bring up James T. Kirk, you can see exactly where I'm at in that document, places that I am working on. Watch me work on the other side. So I've got co-authoring, immediate information with respect to who's doing what in your documents. So that live co-authoring is another reason and helpful feature of getting your document. So that's kind of, just again, we just want to back up a little bit, talk about why this might be helpful, why you want to get there. And let's talk about now how you do that. We're going to start with a SharePoint migration tool is a piece of software that is free. And if want to drop the link into chat, it's aka.ms/SPMT, SharePoint Migration Toolkit. And free piece of software from Microsoft. That URL will get you to the page here. I'll just walk you through this, how to download it, which is great, is it doesn't require administrator install. So I'm going to scroll down here and eventually we'll find install. And we've got some options for downloading. I would just recommend sticking with general availability in case, unless you hit some weird issue and maybe talk with support or something like that to try something earlier. But I'm just going to download the general available version of that. And the key one here that we're talking about is things that you more easily can control. Maybe in your environment, maybe you do have an on-premises SharePoint site. But we're going to mostly talk around getting your documents off your computer or a network share, typically is what we would be using. That's going to download, open that file, start. Pretty quick
This
install.
does not require you to be an administrator on your
No,
computer.
no prompts we've seen here so
Yeah.
far. So
Yeah. It does require you to have access to where the stuff is, obviously. So if it's on a network drive, you clearly need to have access to the network drive, right, to get it. And you need to have access to the destination, which would be probably a team or your own OneDrive. So you're going to sign into the tool with your Microsoft work or school account, and that's going to authenticate you to those destinations. And before we go too far, I want to address something. You might be saying, like, why are you showing me this complicated tool? I can just copy and paste everything into my OneDrive folder and it will eventually make its way up to the cloud, right? Yes, you can do that. Should you do that? In our opinion, no. In our opinion, based on bajillions of migrations, we prefer this tool because this tool, there's a saying in programming and a saying in IT called garbage in, garbage out. You have tons of little itty bitty hidden files from every single time Office crashed, or who knows how many weird apps you've been using over the years. There's one in Joe's drive right now. You might have a citation tool that's generating a billion little hidden files as well. The SharePoint migration tool can skip all of those. If you just copy and paste into your OneDrive, two things are going to happen. Number one, everything that came from your network share has to be copied down to your computer's hard drive. So now you filled up your hard drive. Number two, all the little artifacts and remnants of who knows what app also come down and then get shipped right back up to your team, which means you've added an extra burden on the OneDrive agent. You see Joe's down there is kind of swirling right now. It might, if you got 300,000 hidden files, the OneDrive agent is going to try to synchronize 300,000 hidden files. Versus SharePoint migration tool is a much more direct. We're just going to take it from the network drive and we're going to send it straight to OneDrive and bypass the sync.
and another nice feature is if you copy a file from a network share, again, like you were saying, Dwayne, to your local computer, you just made a copy and the metadata on those files change. So the creation date, things like that, modified, those are going to change where this tool can understand the date and time when that file was created, which can be helpful. You don't lose that information. And it can understand the owner, who produced that document. So if you've got a network share and you're migrating into a team, it can help understand who was the author, and that information can also stay along the way with these documents. So again, that little bit of metadata with that you would lose if you were just copying these files yourself and dragging them into a team or dragging them into your OneDrive. You're going to end up becoming the owner and the author of those. I think we just go ahead and start this wizard. I'm going to do a new file share wizard. What I've got here is I don't have a network share up, but imagine that this folder, this C drive net share demo, is out on a network, perhaps an N drive or something like that, an S drive. You've got those. I'm just going to click a new migration, and I'm going to do a file share resource. Could be a local computer or again on a network share. And I was just looking for where do I want to move this file from? So grab my PC and I'm going to drill into this same folder here. And there's a first option here is am I selecting this folder and all the folder contents and all the like kind of like recursive, you could say. So this first option, I'm going to get not just these PDFs sitting here, but I'm going to get the folders also. But if I wanted just the PDFs, I could migrate only the folder contents. I'm going to migrate everything in this demo. And now I get to choose. Again, this is why this tool is great. Is it really does just walk us through kind of this wizard way where we want to put this. I'm going to pick my OneDrive. And this is the account that I'm going to put it in. That's my email for this case. And we've already authenticated it. And there was one pop-up that came up when I ran this tool the first time was authenticating. That was under my account. So now it can see my documents library, the document library that's in my OneDrive. And I do have an option to go one folder deep. So I could put it into my desktop, into documents. Have fun. Let's see what happens when I put it into my desktop here. Hit next. This has given me just kind of a little summary of what that is going to look like. I can give it a name. If I want to give that something that I can remember what this exactly was, net, some type of net share, OneDrive. Now here's some settings that I can decide to do. Only perform scanning. So if you've got, like Dwayne said, maybe if you're doing this first time and you're grabbing a bunch of documents, 100,000 documents or something like that, you've got a bunch of data that you want to come over. You might want to just scan that first. Maybe there are some weird issues with with some files. There's thankfully they're down to just a few characters in file names that might not be able to migrate. Um, maybe there is too many. What is it? Too many characters. The path that your file lives on your network share is way too deep, and you might encounter some issues. Um, so this just gives you a chance of not actually starting this whole process and just see and look at a log file and see if there's any errors. For our cases, we're pretty much going to probably tell you most of the time, just you don't want to do this preserve file share permissions. You just don't want to complicate the permissioning in the cloud where you're moving these to very likely when you're doing this yourself and just maybe moving your own files around. Automatic user mapping, leave that on. That's a way where it will try to determine the owner of that file and maintain that in the cloud for you. We go to view all settings. These are some of the other options that might want to check. One of those is include hidden files. So if I want to get rid of all those temp files we're talking about, or this example I have on the screen comes from if you're working with someone and interacting with someone on a Mac, typically where that comes from. So I can have it ignore those if I want. I could have it only the last 6 months of files or something like that. If I want to do that, I could migrate those. There are certain files maybe I don't want to migrate. Maybe there is a set of maybe you have some massive zip files or some type of research data type of file type. You can ignore those here if you want to. And instead of having files that have a character that the cloud can't handle, something that SharePoint can't handle, you could have those fixed on the fly for you. Here it gives you a list of some. I think it's probably on a number of systems. Probably difficult to get one of those characters actually in a file name, but just in case, you could replace those on the fly and ensure that those still get up into the cloud.
I dropped a link in the chat to unsupported file types and file names. So good to know that there are invalid characters and there are certain invalid file/folder names that you're not allowed to use that are typically related, in my experience, from people who backed up their website or something like that. We can't have a website in a website. If you think about what OneDrive is, it's a website. So there's certain folders that you can't have. And when they added this option, oh my gosh, I wish they'd added this option when I was doing massive amounts of migrations. It would have made my life a whole lot easier. But to remedy those on the fly and just have it replace that character with an underscore, oh, that's so
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. I think you wrote some code to go replace those manually
Yeah.
across thousands and thousands of files. So,
Yeah, we did a
and
lot of manual work.
yeah, one very advanced feature here is running this a few times in a row. Maybe you've got a lot of files and you could just set this on a weekend, get it running. Um, Maybe you just want to make sure that that's really complete when you're end of the weekend, or maybe you want to set it on run it on a Friday, and you could still keep working on your files because this will be an iterative. Um, it will slowly just start picking up changes and only migrating changes once it's in this process for this session. So you can maybe still keep working on your files while this is running, and eventually stop, update all your files, and let this finish one more time, um, and remember to stop working with those files wherever they were, so you don't get kind of split brain. That's the other thing to think about is if you do this migration of some maybe a group folder from a network share into Teams into a team for your group of people, is maybe get some help from IT to remove that. Maybe you had a map drive to that location or something like that. But do some work to say, here's our cutoff date, and we're working in the cloud now. But I'm going to go ahead and save that. Uh, Go ahead and let that start and run. We're going to go let that run. Go take a look at. We were talking about a little bit about migrations. Is when they're in the cloud. You got your files up there somewhere. Is just to make sure you've seen this, is the ability to just easily move documents around. So I can come in here and I could drag this file. I could drop it into a folder if I wanted to, and it's going to start it twice. I could grab a couple files that I might want to migrate and move. I could move those someplace else. I could move those into a completely different team, perhaps, if I wanted to. Um, Pick a folder over in Dwayne's test team. If I have access to and rights to it, I can move them over there. So once they're in the cloud, this is a really nice feature, is to moving things around that are in the cloud. Try to use the cloud and move them around. Don't need to synchronize these to your computer and copy them into different folders and between different teams. Because that's the other nice thing is, well, I've got my files in the cloud, but I've got some type of business process where I need to say, I've got some, um, for us sometimes, maybe we've traveled somewhere and we've got some receipts we need to upload into some business website that our university uses. I can't easily drag a file that's in my browser into another tab into some other application. So how do we work with that? If it's in your OneDrive, and then we know that that file is going to be um, synchronized down to your computer. If it's in a team, in this case, I'm in a SharePoint site, but I could be in a team. Go into the same team here and see my files here. Well, let's say this equipment was an important folder for me that I always kind of wanted accessible to those files to live on my computer so I could upload them somewhere. So I'm in that folder. I can say add shortcut to OneDrive. That would be our preferred option nowadays. Versus there's an older style that still works called sync.
Don't use that one. Just
Don't
don't.
use that one.
Just don't.
Can't wait for
Take our
that
word for
to
it.
maybe there's a way to remove that from the interface someday, but add shortcut to OneDrive. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that option. And if I come over into I'm in my OneDrive, I can go to files and there's equipment. So I'm in OneDrive, my files, easy way to go look. And I can see that in this sharing column that the owner of that folder called equipment is from that team called Joe Test. And you can see there's a little icon under there that represents a shortcut. So this again, it's a shortcut. I am in my OneDrive, my one place. I can click on that and I can see those same files that live over in the team without going to the team. And one little trick I like to do is like rename these special shortcuts. So I might put underneath this, I might rename this to like underscore Joe Test. That's the name of the team. A hyphen and the equipment is the folder or the channel that was. I'm going to update that. And now if we go to my hard drive and look in my documents here, this is stuck syncing. There we go. I've got Joe Test equipment. There's those documents. I can pull those down. If this folder is stuff that I really need to look at all the time, I can choose to always keep on this device. That's going to synchronize those right to my system. Now I could drag those files around and upload them into a website or something like that. So a nice feature there to remember that once you put them in the cloud, how to maybe continue to work with those. And in
Yeah.
some cases, Dwayne, you mentioned about you've got maybe just these weird research files or something like that. We have seen the case where we've had our labs go ahead and move their stuff to Teams, but because they could sync down maybe a project or a grant they're working on, all of just those individual files, sync them to their local computer. I actually like that better because they're doing some type of analysis on those documents, and those files easily are living on their local computer where they have fast compute, and maybe a GPU, and files aren't living off a network share, and they're waiting for those files to copy around and work with them
Yeah.
that way. So just one other little feature.
Yeah. A little bit of commenting in the chat about sync versus shortcut. And so I want to say it out loud just for the sake of it being on the recording. Development and feature improvements are going towards OneDrive shortcuts, not to sync. Sync is also less performant. So when you perform a sync, even if you're only syncing an individual folder, it is still syncing metadata for the entire site. Versus a shortcut, if the shortcut you're creating to a folder only has 5 items in the folder, it will only process those 5 items. Shortcuts are also kind of universal. Sync is per computer. So if you created a sync on your laptop, you would not see that sync on your desktop. Versus shortcuts, you're going to see that on your laptop, your desktop, your phone, everything. It's for your account. You have created that shortcut. Um, Also, undoing shortcuts is far less dangerous. And I use the word dangerous because Joe and I have very much personal experience with people who tried to remove a sync from their computer. And by removing it, they just went to the sync and clicked delete. They didn't realize they were actually instructing SharePoint to delete that folder. So they deleted it for everyone on their team. When you delete a shortcut, it will just delete the shortcut. It does not remove the data from the SharePoint site for everybody. You can also rename them, so you could move them around. You see Joe's got little underscores on them. You can move them into a folder if you wanted to, however you want to organize them. That is a personal preference on your side. So sync is way more static and clunky than shortcut, and you get all the same benefits of having the data being local to you on your disk. Greg was talking in the chat about, hey, we're in the field sometimes. Absolutely, we know that. So having this available in an offline mode so that you can then, fire it up in the future, when you get back to your office and it synchronizes those changes to the cloud, all that still works. Shortcuts are definitely the way.
And you see there, I went ahead and deleted that shortcut. It just deleted it. It's even gotten better. The interface previously would give you some warning, like what's happening. Now to me, it's smart enough now to understand that it just says removed shortcut. It doesn't say the word delete or anything like that. It was kind of, could still be a little, give people the user interface a little worrisome. Even gotten better now where it really understands what you're attempting to do there. And so I deleted that. I still have my equipment folder in the team where those files are. So I didn't have a chance to lose those. Now let's look and see, did the migration work? So we've got this migration that was running. I moved 100 megs in 4 minutes. I have a report to look at that. There's 2 filtered out items. Those are probably a couple of desktop.ini file and that DS store file that were hidden that have been filtered out. I moved them into a desktop folder. I have got, let's see, so I've got image bank and awesome project. Those folders are there. Those files are there. And those were on my virtual kind of thinking about it, my network share. That's where those originated from. And we can see those now have made it to the folder that I wanted to be in. And that was pretty easy, pretty quick to do that. Just going to show, go back home real quick. Just going to do a new migration. Use that same folder. And I'm just going to show you kind of the interface again for maybe moving it into Teams. And let's think about this. Actually, I'm going to move just this awesome project folder. And it's a group folder I'm using somewhere. And I want to move that into a team. Well, right there, again, immediately just kind of easily gives me access to a team. Very friendly that I might want to put this into Joe Test. Going to give me options of the channels that currently exist. I'll put it into project 4. I could create one more level of that channel. So the channels in this team are general in project 4. I'm going to stick it into the project 4. In this case, I could let it go. I'll go ahead and drill into replace my invalid characters and don't include hidden files. It remembered those settings for me. Save that, just hit start, and we'll let that run. So the same thing is for SharePoint. It's going to give you some SharePoint lists and things like that you have accessed recently. Push those up there for you. If you've got, if you're moving something from a network share where you're working with a bunch of groups of other people, post migration is again to remember to do some type of cleanup. Go rename those folders to like archive, don't touch. Maybe you can get IT help to set them to read only if you really want to kind of have access to that archive. And maybe you don't move all your files. Maybe you just move the most recent 6 months that you're going to work with, and maybe it's a way to kind of, you've got a folder of stuff that's been around for a decade. Maybe this is a way to start that cleanup and kind of modernize the way that you're working.
It is spring.
Yeah, there you go.
A little spring cleaning,
Yeah.
not a bad idea.
If you've got real quick, the last thing was for me was talking about if you've got maybe you've got stuff spread out in Dropbox, Google Drive, and you're looking to migrate this into one place. Used to be a tool we could use for free. Does not seem like that's available anymore, but there is that we could individually use without basically asking. But that technology has been moved into the Microsoft administrative tenant cloud world, and you would need some IT support. But there is a free migration tool available um, from your administrators of Microsoft 365 at your university that can move stuff from Dropbox and Google Drive same way into your OneDrive for you. Yeah, that one's finished. That took a minute.
Um,
Great.
the mover still works for me.
I have not
So
been able to get it to work. So
maybe we
go
can
ahead
do
and
another session.
maybe let people know. I have not been able to get it to sign in. Maybe it was just having problems.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Drop a
There,
link in the chat to it just so that
yeah.
people just they know what it is. Um, Microsoft acquired a company many years ago called Mover, and the Mover company specialized in moving data between different cloud services. And when Microsoft acquired them, they said, now we're going to specialize in moving data from other cloud services into our cloud service. So if you
It looks like
had,
they fixed it. Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
So if
great.
you
It's
had
not been
data in
working for a
Dropbox,
couple weeks.
data in Box, data in Google Drive, and you wanted to pull that into OneDrive, and that is very important distinction here, is this only allows you to target your own OneDrive. You can't migrate from Dropbox into a Microsoft Teams team. But Joe showed you how to copy and move files around. So once it's in your OneDrive, you could theoretically just copy it from your OneDrive over into a team and do all of that moving in the cloud and not have to download a bunch of stuff to your computer, or more importantly, let's be real here and talk about rural extension county, office internet. You don't have to rely on that internet connection because it's never going to bring it down to your computer and then push it right back out to the cloud. So way more efficient method. So not one we have time to really dive into today, but definitely one you should take a peek at.
That's great. Thanks for. I'm glad you had me try it again because it definitely hasn't been working for a little bit for some testing I was doing. That's what I have for migrations. Like covered some
Awesome.
questions in the chat. Anything we missed
Yeah, just
on
to
the call?
recap, we showed a couple of different scenarios. We showed you've got stuff on your hard drive, stuff on an external hard drive, stuff on a network share. The SharePoint migration tool is a fantastic way to move that stuff into either OneDrive or Teams. Let's say you've got stuff already in the cloud. It's already in your OneDrive, and you realize, like, oh no, Dwayne and Joe have been telling me for months, OneDrive is mine and Teams is ours. I need to move this stuff. Well, he showed you how to just go into the web, click move, go browse your teams that you're a member of and pick a new destination and copy it over. And you can also do that between channels. Like we've had lots of scenarios where people say, like, we've got these two channels and we don't really want two channels. We want one channel. How do we consolidate? Well, you can consolidate the files. You can't consolidate the conversations and the posts. So you would archive one channel and move all the stuff into the new channel. And you can do that right inside of Teams. Click the dots next to all of the files and just click move. And the last thing I'll stress again is that Joe talked about just a second ago is when you decide I'm moving away from a network share and we're moving over to Teams, just be cognizant of the fact that you are copying data from the share to the team, and you now have two completely independent copies of that file. If your teammates are not all on the same page as you, and they're going to the network share and they're editing the file there, the changes they're making are not going to be reflected in Teams. You'd have to do another copy job. Now, thankfully, the SharePoint migration tool does support what is known as incremental copies. So you can run it multiple times. So you could run it every day for a week and it would capture any of the changes that people made and then you give everybody a deadline and you say, all right, Friday's it. You know, you got until Friday to figure out how to use the team. On Friday, we're cutting you off. And that's where you might want to call your IT and say, hey, can we set this folder to read only or remove everyone's access or something like that. Just make sure you're all on the same page is all. It requires the communication is the harder part. The technical moving stuff is easy. Getting people to talk to each other seems to be more challenging. Thanks, Joe, for that demo. I appreciate all the time you spent on setting that up and getting it to a point where you could show it to everybody. Having the demo files and the demo destinations is the hard part.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill the recording and hang out for a second. But thanks everybody for hanging out with us, and hopefully you learned some new tricks about how to move all the cheese. Right.
Thank you.